Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I want to offer you a status update on my modus themes. Those are my highly accessible themes for GNU Emacs. They are distributed as standalone packages, but you can also find them built in to Emacs version 28, which is the current development target. So what I want to do in this status update is bring you up to speed with how the project is going. The last time I spoke about this topic was in August 2020. That was when the themes were included into Emacs, and I took that opportunity to announce the fact and basically thank a few people that had helped with the project up to that date. So let's start right away. I have a presentation here, just standard org mode, and let's see how it goes. So an overview of the project in case you are not aware. So the modus themes consist of a light and a dark theme. Modus operandi is the light theme and modus vivendi is what I am using right now. If you check my video backlog, you can see modus operandi in action as well, and basically it's those two themes. Let's remove the cursor so that they conform with the WCAG AAA standard. This is a standard that measures the relative luminance between any given combination of two colors, typically a background and a foreground. So the idea is that there is a certain minimum threshold below which you don't have an accessible color combination. So the AAA standard in this case, which corresponds to a minimum contrast ratio of 7:1, is the highest legibility standard of its kind. It means that whenever you see text, it has to be readable. That is the very basic idea of this. Of course, there is a formula, and it's a much more technical way of arriving at this, but the idea is that you want things to be readable, you want them to be legible. The overall design of the themes is also good for people with red-green color deficiency. This is known, the medical term for this is deuteranopia. That's how it is pronounced in English. The words are Greek, of course, so I cannot afford to butcher this word. So in Greek it is defteranopia. Doesn't really matter. Let's say deuteranopia, red-green color deficiency. So the themes are good for that as well, apart from being legible. And this is deuteranopia basically means that people cannot distinguish between red and green. So in cases where there is color coding, so for example in diffs where you have removed lines in red and then right below you have added lines in green, a person with deuteranopia will not be able to tell the difference. They look practically the same. So the themes are designed to account for those cases so that we don't have red and green color coding side by side. We avoid that, and I will elaborate a bit more on this further into the presentation. As I already noted, the themes were built into Emacs, since August of last year, and this means that they are part of Emacs 28, which is the current development target of Emacs. The last stable version is Emacs 27. So in that video that I did last year about the themes, I basically announced the fact that they were built into Emacs, and also took the time to say the name of each of the people who had contributed to the project at the time. Contributions can be in the form of code, but usually they are issues. Somebody reports something that is amiss and I see to it, or it can be in the form of packaging, documentation, or whatever. there is a section in the official manual of the themes called acknowledgements, and there I have the names of everyone involved. There have been over 1,700 commits in less than 2 years since the project started. The first commit in the old master branch was on the 9th of July 2019, and the new commits to the main branch start from the 11th of November 2020. I started working on this project, by the way, as soon as I switched to Emacs. I think I switched to Emacs on the 4th of July or the 5th of July 2019, and the first thing I did was to figure out how to start writing a theme, because it was a prerequisite to working with Emacs. Legibility matters. So anyhow, let's move to the next point. The themes explicitly support over 300 Emacs packages or face groups. There are others which are covered indirectly as well, because they inherit from some of those groups that we support. Typically they inherit from font lock or some other basic face, maybe some dependency that we support, but you get the idea. In practice, this means that when you load the themes and you work in your normal setup, you should be good to go. Everything should be supported, everything should work. This, of course, does not mean that everything is necessarily perfect. If something does not feel right, you can, of course, report an issue, you can contact me, and we will see to it. But the idea is that the themes should work in every scenario. There are 30 customization variables, that is user-facing variables, so you can configure those in your init file and change the themes to your liking. Some are Boolean types or numbers, though most of them offer a variety of pre-configured options, and all of those options are documented in the docstrings of each variable, but also in the official manual of the themes. Which brings me to the last point. The themes come with a fully fledged manual. This is not an afterthought for me. Documentation is equally important as good code. Good documentation and good code must go together. You cannot have documentation as an afterthought, because then people cannot really discover your project. They cannot really know what is going on, unless, of course, they are too curious to go into the source code and figure it out. But at any rate, you want things to be accessible out of the box. So the manual, when you go to the Git repo of the themes, the manual is available as an org file, but also as an info file. When you install the package, or if you use Emacs 28, you get the info file. You can access it from Emacs's info reader, Control-H-I, you know, that sort of thing. It is not pertinent to this presentation to elaborate on how to read info manuals in Emacs. I hope you know that, and if you don't, you must definitely make it a priority to do so, because you will be needing that skill throughout your life as an Emacs user. The manual is over 23,000 words long, and I am not even trying to be verbose. It is a very boring piece of text, but it is fairly long. That's the idea, because it is quite comprehensive. So let's move on to the next slide, so to speak, the next heading. The switch to version 1.0. This is important to know, because there were some breaking changes relative to the previous versions. So in December of last year, so a few months ago basically, there was a major refactoring of the project. The two themes now are derived from the same source. Basically, there is a macro that expands the themes using a common source, but the point is that they share code. They are more easy to maintain. The themes now are packaged as a single, as a unit. So the one package is called now modus-themes. That's the name of the package. Whereas before, so up to version 0.13, the themes were designed as standalone files. So we had a package called modus operandi theme and another one modus vivendi theme. Those old packages have long been removed from Melpa. I think they were removed in December. As soon as I released the new version, they were replaced right away. And they have also been deprecated in GNU ELPA. GNU ELPA is the official package archive of Emacs. You do not need to do anything to set it up. As soon as you launch Emacs and you try to do anything with packages such as list packages, package install, etc., you are working with GNU ELPA. So as I was saying, they have been deprecated in GNU ELPA, and what this means in practice is that if you go and try to download one of the old packages, it will instead pull in the new package. However, I will be coordinating with Stefan Monnier, who is the de facto maintainer of GNU ELPA. Monnier was also a maintainer of GNU Emacs in the past, and remains a core contributor, of course. So anyway, we will discuss the best timing on when to remove those old packages altogether, but expect it to happen sometime in the near future. The deprecation took place, I think, in March, and we established a roadmap of 3 months or so for removing them. So yeah, we are approaching that date. The refactoring was also an ideal opportunity to change the name of the primary branch that we are working on in the Git repo. Before it was named master, and that was because of inertia mostly, because that's what the Forge provides by default. But it has since been, the code has since moved to the main branch. Development rather, not the code. The old master branch still exists and you can access it, but now development unfolds in the main branch. And this was done in an effort to be better aligned with the expectations and sensitivities of our users. And I also think it makes sense to call it main. It is better than a master, because main is just where it takes place. Master implies that there is a hierarchy between the branches, which is not true. So it's better also in this sense. So if you were tracking the Git repo, maybe using Straight or Borg or some other means, maybe manually, I don't know. But anyway, if you were tracking the repo, the Git repo, please make sure to update your sources accordingly. And if you need any help in the transition, you can always contact me and I will help you right away. So next up, let's talk a bit about red-green color deficiency, deuteranopia. So as I already noted, the themes are very good on this front, and the reason for that is because most of the colors that we use in practice are blue, magenta, cyan. They are on that side of the color spectrum instead of red, green, and yellow. There is a technical reason for that, and it has to do with luminance, but it doesn't really matter right now. What matters is that we don't rely on red, green, and yellow. So we have blue, cyan, magenta variants of those three basic colors, and we also have black, white, and the various shades of gray. So those are the most dominant colors. And this is good for red-green color deficiency because exactly we do not depend on distinctions between red and green. We do not use that color coding. There are, however, two exceptions to this norm, which means that the themes do not work for deuteranopia in those two exceptions. And those are diffs, such as in Magit or ediff or diff mode. So diffs are the one, and the other one are various cases where success is denoted by the use of a green color, and failure or pending or something along those lines is red or some shade thereof. So those two exceptions use the red-green color coding system, and we conform with that system by default in order not to upset users, in order not to upset their expectations. Of course, most people will expect, for example, that diffs will be red and green. Whether it is an intense red or green, that's another discussion, but basically red and green. So for those cases specifically, we offer customization options. So there is, for example, we have it over here. So there is for diffs, you can have an option like this, or you can do it, why doesn't it move? Or like this. What I am showing below is this one. And there is also how to denote success in general, and you can just set this to true, and this will mean that wherever there is an instance of green which is in a color coding system with red, green will be substituted with blue. That's the basic idea of those variables. And you can see below I have over here a sample diff, and you can see how this works, red and blue. That's the idea of it. Of course, you might prefer those options for aesthetic purposes, but their primary purpose is to make the themes accessible also in this specific regard. So I think this is of paramount importance to make the themes as accessible as possible, and because we were already in a good position to do so in terms of the default color palette that we use, it was only a matter of accounting for those differences and providing the relevant customization options. So I am happy to say that the themes also now cover this use case very well. But as always, if there is some edge case where this is not true, you will have to inform me about it, and I will act on it. So customizations and the manual. Customizations, as I already just showed with red-green color deficiency, can of course help with accessibility. They are very practical in that regard, but they can also help with configuring various aspects of the theme to your liking. And I think this is also another way of boosting your productivity, because when there is something that annoys you, at least this happens with me, when I see something that I don't like, when I notice it, it is distracting me, it detracts from my productivity, so I want to address it right away. So in that sense, customizations are good, but also customizations are the Emacs way of doing things. So of course, that's what we do here as well. This is a list with all the customization options. It does not include a couple of variables that I will elaborate on a bit later, and those are for overriding colors in the palette. You can do that as well. You can completely refashion the themes if you want, and the manual actually shows you how to do it in detail. So yeah, those are some variables over here, and basically some options for them. As I said, we have a total of 30 customization options. Many of those accept pre-configured choices. Some of them are true or false, booleans, and some of them have a number. They take a number as a value. So at this point, let me switch to the manual. So you can see, for example, that I am using a configured mode line. Normally it is not blue, it is a shade of gray, and it is not a pseudo 3D effect as it is here. It is a flat box with discernible borders. So anyhow, this is the manual, and as I said, it is over 23,000 words. So let's go to the customization options, and this is the opening section of the customization options. Over here there are subsections for each option, and basically what we have over here is all those variables, but they are annotated. So in case you don't want to read through the whole manual, you can get an overview over here as well. So you can read this on your own and get a sense of how things stand. And of course, you can always, for example, let's say you are over a variable, Control H V, the default that will prompt you for a default value. The default is the variable at point. So if you do Control HV and then the return key, you will get a help buffer with the docstring of that variable. And you can see the docstring is also comprehensive as well. So in case you cannot figure out what is going on here, you can always check the docstrings as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is override colors. So yeah, there is an entire section on do it yourself, DIY. For changing things on your own, and it includes a lot of information. It includes code samples, and it details everything. Here are some examples on how to override the colors using the special variables modus-themes colors, modus-themes operandi color overrides, and the equivalent for Vivendi. And you will just be mirroring the palette that you can get in the themes. It is explained here, and overriding it with your own values, color values. You don't have to do it for all colors. Of course, you can just do it for a handful. It's just a matter of preference. And I also have here a minor mode in case you want to have this be done as a minor mode, because why not? So that's the idea. There is also, in the spirit of overriding colors, there is also the ability to override the saturation of the palette across the board, so to do it automatically. And this is discussed here, but there is also a way to have the automatic saturation as well as manual overrides. So this is discussed in the manual at length. And we have all sorts of DIY that you may want to consider. For example, remap face with a local value, cycle through arbitrary colors. You get the idea. There are lots of cases here for you to consider. So this is a comprehensive document, and it should be very helpful if you want to go and configure things on your own. We also have notes for individual packages for you to bear in mind. One thing that I just noticed that it is missing here, but I will add it, is that if you are a Doom Emacs user, Doom Emacs uses a package called Solaire. Let me write it over here, and you can see how it is written. Solaire. It's a Solaire mode, it is called. And what this does is that it uses a different background for code-related buffers, programming buffers. it uses a shade of gray for those. Whereas the default background for Vivendi is pure black, and for modus operandi it is pure white. This is just something for you to know, because it changes the presentation, the perception of the colors and so on. I do support the Solaire mode, of course, but I would have preferred if it were opt-in, so you would know that the background changes. Anyhow, this is something for you to bear in mind. It's not a big issue. Solaire looks good. I don't think it looks bad, but it changes the theme, so it's something for you to bear in mind. So basically this is the idea. I will release version 1.4 within the next few days, maybe within the next 10 days or so, definitely before the end of this month. I just need to find some time to write the changelog basically, and I'm also waiting to see in case we have any last minute issues. I'm always very conservative and very careful with maintaining the themes. I always want to take things slowly and give people a chance to test things out, and I try not to break things in a backward incompatible way. So yeah, the changelog entry will be long and detailed. They always are like that. It is common for them to be 2,000 words or more. Documentation, you can tell, documentation for me really matters a lot. So for the future of the project, I plan to continue iterating on the 1.x versions. I think there will be a 1.5 after the forthcoming release, and maybe we will see how it goes further into the summer. The idea is that I want to be 100% confident that the themes are polished and they work as expected, and of course this means that we cover everything in terms of customizations, supported packages, and so on. I believe this is already true. I believe the themes are stable, are in a very good state already, but I always prefer to err on the side of caution and to give an opportunity to test things further. We are not in a rush. But once we are done with this, once I am happy with the progress that has been achieved and think that we are in a stable state, I will prepare version 2.0 of the themes, and this will be the culmination of those 2 years or so of work, and we will see how it goes from there. Of course, don't expect anything groundbreaking. It will just be more or less more of the same what I have already been doing. Maybe there will be an extra customization option, or some more values that you can use in those customizations, or some tweaks along those lines, but nothing out of the ordinary. So that's about it, folks. That was the idea of this presentation, just to bring you up to speed with my project. You can always find the manual with the packages if you download the Modus Themes package. Of course, the manual is also available on my website. So my website is protesilaos.com/modus themes for the official manual. There is also Modus Themes change log if you want to read the changelog online, and there are also pictures if you want to see some demo pictures. But of course, for demo, maybe it's better to check some of my previous videos, because I am always using those themes and you can see them in action. So that's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, of course, whenever I release a theme, I always sync it with Emacs Git. So version 1.4 will also be synced with Emacs, as well as the packages that are available in Melpa, GNU Elpa, etc. So that's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.